Alright. Degis. Ah, one of the best players out there. I apparently got paired against him in a live league, so this is a 5 minute plus 2 minute increment map, which means we have 5 minutes on the bank, and every time we make a turn, we get 2 extra minutes to make our turns. It's tier 3, and the map is Force of Nature. I actually like this map, but I didn't know what to pick, so I picked Drake as a comfort pick, and D just went with Rachel. I was actually testing out a new capture order. Like, it's not new, but it's something that I haven't done myself yet. But first things first, always rush for the neutral base. You want the neutral bases to get more units on the field as soon as possible. And then I go for my properties. Um, let's hurry this up a little because it's just a normal capture phase. I go for an artillery. I was deciding between which base I want to use my artillery in. I chose to go with this base because I want my infantry further ahead to capture properties more quickly, but that will actually be a detriment, that which you will see later. And uh, just more infantry because I can't really afford any other vehicles. He built a mech, which I didn't understand it at the time, but the mech does come in later. And he sits his artillery right in the center and denies me this property. And my artillery doesn't have the movement. If I did have the movement, I would sit my artillery right next to his to also control the center, which would be a little bit funny seeing our artillery just next to each other. But because I built it one base, one tile further ahead, it doesn't have the movement. So my artillery is already in a worse position than him, which which really feels bad. So I'm already behind. I built a tank on my back base for the same reason I want my infantry further ahead, because it walks slower. And he moves his artillery back to sit right here, still locking down this property, denying me it. Meanwhile, he's safely capturing his. I don't know why, but I forgot his artillery was here, even though we were playing this live and I definitely seen him move. So that was another mistake on my end. And I finally started building my vehicles on the first base where it's closer to the center. And he walls off his artillery with infantry, so I can't hit it. Even if I did break through, he got his tank nearby. His tank was threatening my artillery, so I moved back and then blocked his tank from my artillery with an infantry. And I decided, oh, 2 tanks. I went for 2 tanks because 2 tanks are better than 1 battlecopter, especially as Drake. He interrupts my capture here, and threatens to capture my property. I decide to go pick off an infantry here. I think my reasoning was that I have another tank up here, and I could probably attack from the bottom if he ever tries to. Once again, I go for this property, completely forgetting that his artillery was here. He broke this pipe here so his units can immediately reinforce to the center. And I go for a Drake battlecopter because at this point, if we go for a mirror game where we both send tanks and artillery against each other, he will win simply because he's already winning ahead. So I had to shake things up somehow. So I brought in a battlecopter. He breaks my infantry wall, because that artillery, I don't know how I missed that artillery a second time, but that allowed him to break this infantry, and then that allowed this infantry to be broken, and he reached my artillery. He gets a shot at my tank because why wouldn't he? And this mech here, it was protecting the artillery. Now it's protecting this tank all the way right here. So mechs are used defensively. In this case, it is offensively, but in the sense that it's used mostly to counterattack my vehicles. So I try to break through. Unfortunately, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Unfortunately, it shows it over here, but I guess it didn't take into account that my opponent has units blocking. My healthy tank here doesn't have the movement to reach the 7 HP tank, which once again throws a little wrench into my plans. So I decided to just pull back a little, put my artillery here, and I decided rockets. Rockets are typically not very used for many reasons, but I thought, okay, if you want to destroy the rocket, you have to overextend all the way onto my side of the river. That's my plan. You have to extend all the way to within one turn's movement from my base if you want to get rid of my rocket. But rockets are expensive. So, but I had to shake things up somehow. If I just kept fighting as we are right now, I would eventually lose. So, I get a shot on his tank, I blow up this tank, and I decided to use my normal power because I have to do something right now, otherwise he's just going to keep pushing forward. I try to get rid of this mech here, and I take it down to 1 HP, so it's not going to do much to my tank. But still, he firmly controls the center right now. And I tried to take this property so I can like get a little bit of compensation for never getting this property anytime soon. But he is playing Rachel, and he's getting his superpower soon. Which means that I have to create an infantry ball somewhere to absorb the superpower, otherwise it will just wreck my army completely. So first I just charged in with my infantry, get rid of that mech. Alright, I'm moving my infantry ahead so that if the missile, so at least the infantry missile and maybe the unit count missile would be redirected away from my rocket. I also create a secondary infantry ball up here, hoping that it will attract something. I decide to get a shot here. I realize my battlecopter is otherwise going to be sitting there doing nothing, so I might as well send it out there. And I start splitting up my forces a little further apart so the missiles won't do much. Alright, here comes the missiles. I said, where's the missile? Oh, he wants to get rid of my infantry ball here, so it wouldn't attract the missile. Here's the missiles, here's the superpower. And it's not bad. Only one of the missiles hit my anti-air and my rocket, the rest only hit infantry. So so I say, okay, that's okay. I'm still gonna lose, but it's not that bad of a, it's not that harming of a superpower. So fortunately, my infantry, the infantry missile only hits infantry, like focuses on infantry, and the unit count missile, because most of my pure numbers is in the center, it only hit infantry again. And the unit value missile only hit these two because I spaced out my army enough. Yeah, I do like the Puyo. I very much enjoy the Puyo. I like the bouncing effect when I talk now. It's very nice. But anyway, I will. I think I will show more Puyo content later, but not right now. I wall off my rocket so that it wouldn't get hit by his battlecopter. I say battlecopters are, like in general, a counter to indirects because missiles are mostly useless. So you will mostly expect only artillery and maybe occasionally a rocket or a battleship, but those indirects can't really hit battlecopters. So here comes the battlecopter swarm. I don't have any anti-air up here, so he sends his battlecopter up. He continues trying to capture this property, and I'm forced to fight on the low plains terrain tile while he gets a nice city and mountain. But I fight on because I'm still only one property behind. But I am like a turn's income behind, that's half a turn's income behind on average. I'm fearing an attack here, so I pull all my infantry back to create a nice wall to protect my tanks. Like, don't let his tanks have first strike by blocking off his tanks with infantry. And I also shift my units down a little because I do want to defend this. I have considered maybe attacking over here because if his focus is up here, maybe I can attack down here, but I just don't have the units to make the push, and I suppose artillery isn't exactly the best pushers without an infantry wall to protect it. Okay, he gets a few shots on my tank. He sends his battlecopter back down because I now have an anti-air up there. And we continue having our infantry battle clashes over here, which is costing me quite a bit since he's damaging me faster than I can heal up from this property. Alright, 1 HP infantry. They're not dead until they're dead. I completely wall off that battlecopter, and then I resign. Because, let's be honest, I am not winning this, not against Aegis. But, yeah, I think that artillery opening, maybe I should start using my forward base instead of my back base. Like, how much slower is my infantry actually going to be one tile behind? I've seen how much an artillery is if it's one tile behind. So, that really shocked me with that artillery in the center. Like, from that turn on, he already won the game with that artillery movement. Like, that game is already over by then. The rest of this fighting is just to make it to see how long I can hold to like show that I'm not exactly a complete pushover against our skill difference. But yeah,